This is the Vannystyle Pro. And not to spoiler my own video, but this is probably the best freestyle frame that I've ever flown. And we're going to go into all the reasons why, including why I never thought I would build or fly another freestyle frame ever again. Why? Because Lamone designed this DJI-03 version of the Open Racer. I never thought I would want to give up the control that I can get as a racer flying a racing build around. Vanover has come up with a way that gives you that feeling of control, but also gives you the smoothness, the smooth flying, well tracking ability that only a freestyle layout can give you. So why is this thing different? There's a lot of small little design decisions giving you this incredibly rigid. As you're assembling the Vannystyle Pro, you can notice this thing fits together with these little side plates and it actually stays together. That means no more trying to use 3 hands at once to assemble.
You make me wish I had 5 hands.
Well, I think you're doing just fine with 2.
I really like that. That also means that there is 1 screw arm swaps if you should break one of these thick 6mm arms. Check out all the arm motor protection that you're going to get with this sort of halberd design. Is really going to keep your motor safe. And if you want even more protection, if you're going to go bando bashing, you can print one of these little arm guards. I'll have links for all the prints that I use down below. As you start to put it together, not only do you feel how rigid it is with its beefy 6mm arms and all the connecting points, but you can see it's fully serviceable. Both the 20x20 and 30x30 stack holes you can get to with the frame fully assembled. Should you ever need to provide maintenance, a lot of frames require you to disassemble the entire thing to get to these. So these extra large cutouts, while keeping the bottom plate still beefy enough to be able to absorb impacts, is really much appreciated flight feel. The arms have like 5 or 6 contact points. I mean, you just cannot budge them. Like, I'm trying to twerk them and they're not twerking. On top of that, the little touches. Having this camera cage that gives you full DJI-03 camera protection. Yes, I'm a camera guy. I have a bunch of cameras all sitting around me, and so I'm not the kind of user that likes to smash up my cameras. So that's one of the things I've always looked for in frame designs is camera protection. It's a cool new design. You can have these little printed inserts that will allow you to use pretty much whatever camera you wish. They have this little insert that actually screws into the top plate and another one that will screw into the bottom plate. A lot of times when you have these camera cages that just press fit into the carbon, they're very tight at first, but over time they become looser. This ensures that not only do you have that press fit tightness, but you actually have a screw holding it, making sure that there's no wiggle. Now, up until now, I would have said this was the best flying freestyle frame ever. The Armatan Marmot.
Oh, nice marmot.
Space grade carbon edition. Now, the issue that eventually happened with the space grade carbon was that if you got a good one, you were freaking golden. But the space grade material they bought, while stronger, was not as consistent. So some people got some that would just crack. Part of having a really good freestyle platform is the ability to have spares and have multiple. And so I had one of these legendary good copies, and it's just a museum piece now. I'm just going to remember how good this thing flew. And I didn't think I would ever get a hold of anything that could fly the same way that this thing could. For a long time, you just had various variations of the same old frame. This is an old, stingy, classic frame, and as you can see, it's that traditional school bus layout. That's something I heard Lamone calling a freestyle frame, and I kind of agree with it. It looks just like a school bus. It's so wide, and as our electronics over the years got smaller and smaller, did you really need that length? If you look, the Source One is just as wide. Now, this did offer you something though. The Source One offered unprecedented cheapness, but resonance and all that stuff, that didn't go into the design of this. But it's not about that. This is about being tough. So how do you get something that you can actually buy that's not space grade, that's tough, that protects the camera, and that gives you the same kind of a control of a racing platform? And of course, you're going to combine the DJI camera system with it. One thing you notice right off the bat, this thing is about 15-20 millimeters shorter. So that school bus layout is compressed just a little bit. And I really like all of the prints, the ability to have the antenna just integrated and housed carefully in there. Every consideration has been made. There's a lot of room at the front behind the camera cage that allows you plenty of room to put your receiver and your capacitor. Now, to do apples to apples comparison, I actually installed Emax's new RS3 motor on both of these. This is a prototype version of the motor. This is the initial production version. And on both of them, I pretty much run it at about an 85% throttle cut because they're very, very powerful motors. If you were going to build one of these up, going with the signature Vannystyle motor is probably a really nice consideration. But since I used that on the V1, I wanted to try something different this time. I did go with the signature blue TPU prints on there, printed on my Bamboo Labs P1P. Now you see this little bar at the top and this little screw on the top. I prefer to use the DJI O3 as my action camera, but this thing has way more power to be able to carry a nice heavy fully loaded GoPro weight. Here's your traditional GoPro 3-ringed mount that would fit on here like this, and then here's one for the Action 2. Both of them use that little bar at the front as a mounting point and mount onto the top like that. Now this is the squish version of this frame, which brings the arms a little bit wider to get less props in your camera view.
Come here, little squishy.
Now you are still going to have a little bit of prop in your camera view. That's why I recommend going with a gray or light or clear colored prop kind of like this that really minimizes that. If you plan on using O3 as your action camera, that's definitely something you're going to want to consider. So if you're going to carry a camera, definitely go with a probably 1800 kV or higher. These are actually 2100 kV and they fit just perfect. Here's the build. It comes together really nice. The Speedy Bee V4 stack. This has Bluetooth connectivity, so I can program Blade of Flight without actually using a computer. I don't know why you'd need to do that, but it is kind of nice to have. The DJI O3 double-sided tape to this bottom right here. This flyfish antenna. Now this is really handy. It's the same overall diameter, but it doesn't have that long stem, so it makes it really easy to use in applications where you have the O3 right next to the antenna. It's just a very short UFL, WFL that goes right there. Then if I kind of pop the flight controller up for just a second, you can see I have my capacitor wires running to the front and my capacitor installed right there. Right behind that is my Radiomaster RP1 receiver with the 2.4 Express LRS antenna right there. The O3 plugs directly in here. The ESC with the metal casing plugs directly into the flight controller. A really nice touch that this comes with custom fit UMA grip light on here. And then I'm going to show you how the top plate fits on here. It's very tight at first, so you do have to kind of install it and take it off a few times, but once it has everything fitting, you kind of put that in there, push it down, and then the nice thing is this little print actually guides the back of the bottom plate into the perfect spot so that all of your holes are lined up. Now, how does it achieve the control? I think a narrower body is one aspect. It's pretty light, even built up with a Tattoo 1400. And I think the toilet tank battery mount is finally really selling me, especially when you have the extra weight of a 6S that's 200 to 220 grams or so. Not just toilet tank, but you can see where that battery position is. It's back here, meaning that it's really balancing the weight of the camera system and the stack, and this putting it just to the back of center means that you're gonna have a perfect balance, and it just feels so nice in the air. I mean, yes, you are going to want to be a little bit careful about how you run your battery lead. I ran mine just out the back like this, and that will keep your balance connector up and away, and I haven't had any issues. You know, for a lot of freestyle frames, you're typically going to have something that's more of like a bando basher, or you're going to have something that is a nice, smooth cinematic, and it's rare to have the ability to do both. Armor 10 was good at that. Catalyst Machine Works has always been pretty good at that, and something like the Apex has also been very good at both of those things. This takes it a step further. So when you're picking a drone frame to fly cinematic freestyle or bando bashing, or just learn to do tricks without worrying about damaging your extremely expensive components, what are you going to pick? Well, Vanover has been the champion of multi-GP. He's been the champion of the Drone Racing League, and he's the most sought after film pilot in all of Hollywood right now. Michael Bay specifically requesting him by name for his drone operator for his movie Ambulance, which means that he is pretty much a line out the door for big time movie pros to get him on set. He developed something that when he's not carrying around a red Komodo is going to be able to give you the best intersection of control, durability, component protection, and most importantly, that smooth feel. I had pretty much written off ever reviewing another freestyle frame again. Yes, I've had probably 50 or more on the channel over the years, but I just didn't think they could get any better. And I didn't think after I had flown an 03 racing setup that I would ever want to again. Now, this is an unpopular opinion though, and most freestylers or camera carriers are not going to be able to use this because there's not a real easy way to mount a GoPro and still use the DJI 03 system. But this does it all, and it's a much more stylish version of that traditional school bus frame. Now, yes, how it looks shouldn't have that much to do with making your decision, but good lord, it is pretty dang nice looking. And it's these subtle touches that goes into selecting custom cut UMA grip light in order to keep your battery in place, because you're not having as much mounting surface area if you toilet tank it. And the fact that they just didn't scrimp and just give you a generic battery pad. Now, years ago, it wasn't common for frames to cost $100 or $110 or $120 for the top tier frames on the market. But over the last few years, T-Motor and Speedy Bee and Foxeer and Flyfish have started coming out with frames to sell, and they're binding flies, and they've over time kind of reduced that freestyle frame price point down to about $60 to $80. So why should you pay more? Well, if you're gonna go lace up some shoes and shoot some hoops, are you gonna want to show up in some Filas, or you want to go show up in some Air Jordans?
Gotta be the shoes.
And the extra design consideration that goes into something like this, you can pretty much make most things fly pretty well on modern version of Betaflight. But this is on another level. I went out to fly a few packs, a couple minutes each, and I just couldn't stop flying. And it's not something that I normally get happening when I go out and freestyle. I mean, it just blew me away. If you have one of these, I definitely want to hear your opinions. I really did like the V1. It flew about as good as most freestyle frames out there, and I liked all the design considerations, but the Pro just takes it to another level to top pretty much everything out there. If you're building a freestyle frame today and you actually have the budget to put in a DJI 03 unit, I don't see why you wouldn't spend the extra 20 or 30 bucks and just get the top that there is out there. Vanover's such a humble guy and probably one of the best ambassadors to FPV that we've ever been fortunate enough to have. Yes, he's the champion, but he also just takes the time to talk to new pilots. Yes, he's a big movie studio guy, but he also goes out and flies on his own dime at things like West Coast Throwdown. Check out some of his freestyle footage done on this thing out at that event. It's just mind-boggling how good this guy is. And when I'm shopping for cameras, you better believe I'm looking at what films have been shot on the camera that I'm shooting on right now. Is it Netflix approved? What kind of setups are they doing with it? Sooner or later, your FPV gear just becomes one more tool in your bag full of tools.